It's an amazing thing, where love will take you, the road you'll travel, the lengths to which you'll go.
Welcome to Delving into Devs. I am Ron10 Glory. I am joined today by Lucius. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, dude.
Good.
Yeah.
And I did want to let people know this is part 2. We're going to be delving into episode 2 and 3 of the series. If you want to catch part 1, where we really, the whole thing is about episode 1. There is a lot to unpack in episode 1. I have a link to that episode down below, and that's over on Lucius's channel.
Yep.
So yeah, let's just dive right in. I remember you mentioning something that you wanted to touch on that we maybe missed on episode 1. Did you want to do that?
It was kind of a small thing, but it's also like I'm picking up on some more cues that I glossed over too, just reviewing the one scene. So it's where after Sergei has been killed, Forrest is sitting outside the DEVS building amongst the gold monoliths, and Katie comes up, sits beside him. They have a talk, and essentially it's kind of like the burden of him having the knowledge that he does have, and knowing he's sort of committed to the tramline idea, and he feels like there's no deviating off of it. It's almost crucial to his entire being. And despite the fact that he knows events are going to happen, it still hits him in a way that he didn't expect. And so she says something along the lines of, like, you have to unravel a lifetime of moral experience and unlearn what always seemed true. Because you like, even though you might have thought this philosophically, it's another thing, like when you have a computer model staring you in the face that is showing you events past, present, future.
Right. And it's, I mean, it is an interesting concept. And of course, Forrest touched on it when he was talking to Sergei and saying, you know, this is absolution because you didn't have a choice.
Right.
This was set in stone, and therefore his actions also, when it comes to having Sergei killed, the same idea. He didn't have a choice. It's on a tram line, which really just kind of blows up any sense of morality or ethics.
Right. You know, you're always trapped. No matter what you try to do, you can't help do but what you do. And she follows that up. She says, whatever we know, the things we feel are still locked inside of us. Meaning that, like, even though you know, this is an event that's going to take place, you still live in that moment. All the preparedness for it. Like, I think it's kind of like watching a game show on TV and being like, oh, you blew it. How could you blow it? And then being in the game show yourself and, like, knowing everything that you could know, and just, like, the nerves getting to you, the live moment getting to you, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy in your chair at home.
So yeah, it's one thing. It's one thing having the knowledge. It's a whole other thing to actually experience.
Right. And
that's true.
They're talking bigger things, but that's just kind of like my analogy on that. But yeah, that was just something I was watching, and I also noticed while that happened, the way they filmed it was kind of like Forrest was off on his own, and you could say there's some symbolism in that, like he's in his own world, and he's kind of cut off from it. And Katie is actually reflected in one of the monolith things and shot. So she's talking to him. They're having a conversation. You see her talking, but it's only through the reflection of the golden monolith.
Right.
And you'll see, like, there's a scene that's in episode 3 that kind of uses, again, reflection in a certain shot where they're sort of foreshadowing things to come in the show. But I'll hit on that when we actually get there.
Yeah. That's very cool. I'm gonna share this out that we got started here real quick.
Sure.
And it, for me, this wasn't necessarily a thing where I was hoping to have some huge audience. I just wanted to talk about this show with you because, I found this guy. I'm really into what Alex Garland is producing, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of engagement with it in the typical circles of like YouTubers and people that I tune into.
Mhm.
Um, it's really nowhere. I haven't really seen anyone talk about it, so it's just nice to have someone to delve into it with.
Well, sure, and kind of speaking, I guess maybe about the marketing or the distribution of it. It is, I think, it's strictly confined to Hulu, but it's an FX series. Like FX funded it, but it was strictly meant to be on Hulu. And I'm gonna say I think Hulu is one of the weakest like streaming platforms out there. I know that it's kind of like it's all of the regular content, but that's sort of like I think it's a weak point. Like it always has the same shows, but if you like those shows, it's great. But if
Yeah,
you're tired of it, it's kind of the weak point of it.
sure.
Um, and they also work in commercials. I was so glad that I have ad block on my computer because I just was able to skip right through it.
Nice.
But at the same time, he's not really. I mean, I guess you could say Nick Offerman's somewhat a big name, but we're not talking like a Leo DiCaprio. We're not talking like there's not like a really big name on this project as like an actor or anything like that. Like Alex Garland, I guess would be the draw to
Yeah,
seeing.
I would say at this point he is the star of
Yeah.
that production for sure.
And maybe it's just like even I like he's more of a heady kind of director writer, at least from what I've seen. Like it's kind of conceptual.
Oh yeah.
um you have to be into that element of it rather than just like I just want shit blowing up all the time at the best CG. Like it's not that kind of thing.
No, but
uh
I mean he will deliver that. You know,
oh yeah, yeah,
it appears.
there
It
is some
pops up.
spectacle, but he doesn't make that the center focus. It's not like how many explosions can we fit into this film.
Yeah.
How can I beat out the last explosion we did the last time? Like it's not really about that. It's more like he's engaging concepts, um, and there's like a meta element to it. I can't wait to talk about Ex Machina because
Oh yeah, dude.
that ending, like I was like I messaged you out there. I was like, yeah, watch Ex Machina. That ending fucked with my head, dude. Like
Oh, it's
I was
absolutely brilliant. It's
yeah,
horrifying, and
right.
I've talked to people who didn't think it was a horror movie, and I'm like, I don't. You didn't see the same
I
movie that
wouldn't
I
say
did.
like in the strictest sense of it. I mean, it's definitely a suspenseful one, but yeah, it left you like I was buying into, it's gonna work out for,
Right, they're gonna
and
like
then
run off into the sunset
yeah,
for
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then it was just like nope, completely not. And yeah, I can't wait to talk about that, but for another time. But it
Yeah,
does tie in. I'll probably make analogies to it as we go along.
for sure.
And we definitely picked up, like, I didn't know it watching the show, but we talked about it at the end of the last show. We talked that Kyoko from that movie is Lily in this movie, but she chopped
That
off her
actually
hair.
took me off guard, dude. I had
Yeah,
not made that connection at all.
yeah.
That blew me away, dude.
I only know
It's
it
like,
through
whoa.
like looking things up. Like I wouldn't have
Yeah,
even noticed it until
that
that.
is crazy, man. Um, yeah, very cool. So I don't. The beginning of episode 2, I just wanted to hit on this song
Yep.
is playing, and it, again, I think like everything Garland does, he's never just choosing a song because maybe it's trending or
Well, and
he
there's very
likes the sound of
few.
it. It always has the lyrics
Yeah, there's
are
very few
certain.
lyrical songs he does use. So like
Yes.
when it does, you really have to pick up on what it actually has.
So it's like the congregation takes the other side, and an inquisition of familiar lies, a grave distraction from a quiet right. Um, I mean, this is just, incarceration creeps up from behind, the implication in its own device in the middle of a salient fight.
I know
Um,
that part played in the middle of the Kenton Russian dude fight.
yeah,
It came back up again, and
yeah.
that was playing in it. Yeah.
So it's just, the musical selection in the show is very purposeful, like everything, every shot. Um, and definitely, I found the entire soundtrack is available on YouTube from the
Hmm.
one of the composers. So I'm gonna drop that in the chat right now
Now,
because
have you
it's
listened
just
to
really
that?
cool. I've pretty much listened to the whole thing.
Would
It's
you
really
recommend
great
it?
to write to. It depends on what, I don't think it's something I'd listen to listen to it if that's what I'm doing, like
Mm-hmm.
engaging music.
Mm-hmm.
But while I'm working, it just creates emotional tones. And when I'm working, that's perfect, you
Okay.
know. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. It's definitely worth a look. Um, okay, so let's see. The next thing that kind of caught my eye was this, and it may have been during the music as well. I can't recall, but this slow crawl of these cars uh, through this very winding road here. Um, it made me think of like intestines and just kind of the inevitability of the things that you're gonna have to deal with like the repetition of a day. They're just, even when you have like a heightened awareness, or you know something that maybe a lot of other people don't. You're gonna have to take those steps that everybody has to take every day. You're gonna have to brush your teeth. You're gonna have to drive your car to work. You're gonna have to obey the rules set in front of you. I don't know. It just kind of made me think of a lot of different things, um, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I don't know if those are, I don't know if other people see things like that and pick up on, or have, if it makes, for me, I just get impressions from images, and it
Well,
makes me.
one of the things I don't think we talked about in the last one, even though we went into kind of great length on the set design and the cube that they work in. Uh, there's always like this pulsing light
Mm,
from that machine, from that area, and like to me, it's like they're trying to like give off like a heartbeat. And when you think on eventually what this quantum rig is going to be doing, like essentially it is its own living system, uh, as far as like data goes, as information goes, and like I'm pretty sure, I'm not positive about this. I remember, like, I'd always be intrigued by these little factoids, but they believe like the smallest particle, like in existence, is basically almost like binary data. Like it's almost like you exist or you don't exist. Like you're there or you're not there, kind of thing. And so I feel like in realm of what they're trying to put out, like if you can absolutely know an entire object 100%, you can basically know its history and its future by knowing for absolute the present term. You
yeah,
can then extrapolate out the
yeah,
cause and effect
right.
thing and go beyond it. So I always feel like they're sort of um, subliminally, putting that in there, like this heartbeat effect. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
it's just interwoven in so well, and it
mhm.
could just be the briefest of moments of imagery put on the screen, but I feel like every single one of them is there for a reason, and it's up to you to, what does it mean to you? What does it make you think
Yeah,
of?
yeah, yeah.
You
I
know?
think it leaves it open enough where it's not like exactly that. Like I'm sure there could be like a legit reason why
Yeah.
that you could do it, but I, I I'm not that technical. I just try to pick up on what I think is going on for it.
Yeah. Okay, so I know you wanted to hit on, and definitely an important scene, the conversation between Forrest and Lily. He's kind of, sharing his experience with his daughter's
Yeah, and
death.
it's one of these things that's really weird because you know that he had a part in the death of Sergei, that he's completely going like there's not even a hint of him like having any sort of regrets, with it. Like it doesn't seem like he's weighed down by this guilt of that, but he sees her suffering and knows his own suffering, and like it does feel like a legitimate like opening of himself when he's talking about it. But the main thing is that he has like a very like matter of fact way of looking at the situation that happened when his wife and kid got hit by a car. And he says, I had two states of mind held at the same time. Um, One was that surely they're dead. Certainly they're dead. I know they're dead, and I can't do anything to change that. And when I go over there, it's gonna rip my heart out. And the other was that it's impossible to believe that it couldn't happen. This isn't true, sort of thing. And he
Right.
just says to her, not only are these two things that can't coexist, they're absolute states. Like one they live, one they're dead. But he held them at the same time, and he was just kind of talking to her, trying to relate that you might be in the same state of mind, sort of thing. But it was a very interesting talk. One of the, I'd say, meteor like interchanges they have in the show, and for me in this episode, I mean, they move a lot of things on the chessboard, but I'm not really seeing like big moments like this. This is kind of the main one, I think,
Yeah.
for the whole of episode 2 that stood out for me.
And see, I mean, I got all of what you just covered. Like, I
Mhm.
agree with what you're saying. For me, what really hit me about it was that what Forrest was doing, even though it seemed like to him, I'm sure it felt like he was being generous, that he was sharing of himself to try and help Lily, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm sure that's what, but for me, it felt like it was a completely self-involved, that was purely that was just his experience.
Mhm.
And he had an opportunity to actually share it with someone in this moment. And for me, Lily was like actually looking at him and feeling in the moment that she already wasn't trusting this guy, and that everything he was saying was for himself and not for her. And she
Mhm.
could not wait to get the fuck out of, like, all she wanted to do was leave. Like, she found,
Mhm.
to me, what I felt in the scene was she found absolutely zero value in anything he said.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, I think there is certainly kind of a narcissistic element to what Forrest is doing. Like his whole drive really is to get back to his family in any
Exactly.
way, shape, or form that he can. But I couldn't also help but feel like he did have this humane element to him as well. But like he's so clouded. Like I mean, most of the stuff that he's in, you could say it's just somebody staring into the camera as far as like judging the acting. But this is just a guy who is stuck in this past and hasn't been able to move on, and you can see it like unravel the people around him too. As we move forward, we'll see that kind of with the girl Katie, who's actually like infatuated with him,
For sure.
but like you feel like she has to shut off her emotions as well because he's never going to return. Like just like with Jamie and Lily, like he's never going to love her back the same way that she loves him in the show. And like so I feel like she's in service to him and trying to make the whole thing become a success and reunite him with his family on whatever level that happens to be, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's like she's committed to that, and that's how much she loves him. But he doesn't have nearly the same regard for her, even though like they live with each
I don't
other.
think
All that,
he has only one interest, a
right?
singular, absolute interest, and nothing. Even if he's convinced himself that there's some greater good aspect to what he's doing, no, it's a completely self-involved, singular interest, and he really doesn't care about anything else. As far as, I mean, I think that's kind of the point of the show, is that, and maybe we see this played out in the world a little bit that we live in, is people can actually convince themselves that they have good intentions, but they're really just trying to fix something in themselves or bring about something that they need for themselves, and it's really
Hmm.
not about anybody else.
Oh, and
Um,
that again can go back to the whole like you couldn't help it. You just couldn't help it. Like
right.
you're
Yes.
trapped in this state.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I feel like, see, and this is the thing, like Lily, I think Lily is this weird X factor of the that's why she's the protagonist. It's why they're so obviously interested in her is that she's different. And I feel like she could see all of this right away. I feel like she could see right through him.
Well, I think she was just tipped off, and like there's too many variables that weren't adding up to her,
Yeah.
mainly about Sergey. But it's kind of like, well, the people involved had to have some hand in knowing something about it. It's just too many strange things. He goes off to the DEVS program on the first day, ends up missing, and then burns himself alive, and it's just like none of
Yeah.
that stacks up at all.
Right.
Like how
Right.
like something's amiss. So I could
Yeah.
understand like where she'd be looking at everyone, especially the people at the top,
Right.
sideways. You know,
Yeah.
like this is
And
the
you
last
know,
guy
and
that
she's
talked to him.
yeah, and she's not. You know, most people would probably be over this guy's stature in the world, right? He's a gazillionaire.
Mhm.
He's got wealth beyond God, right? He's this thing, and she just it doesn't have any effect on her whatsoever. Hex Allen makes a statement here that he had the most sympathy for Forrest, despite his hands being bloody, and it's like. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I actually probably do sympathize with Forrest more than anyone else in the show. Like, I sympathize with his plight. Absolutely. Um, but it doesn't mean that he isn't. I sympathize with it partly because it's so. He's so lost in himself. He's so self. It's so all about this one thing that he's created as the only thing that matters. You know, I think that's part of why I sympathize with him. You know, and Samir also says, brings up a valid point. He can't have blood on his hands because, you know, based in the context of this series, there's no free will. He didn't have a choice, so you can't really. People can't be judged on those terms, right? In the context of this storyline, because they don't have a choice in the matter. And I don't know if the show is giving us like that's up to you to decide if that's actually what's happening, or you know, it's like the chicken or the egg. Is the simulation really proving that there's no free will, or are they just choosing to surrender to it?
Right.
You know, that's why I love the show, because it brings up all these questions. For sure.
So the only other thing for me of notice with this episode, we kind of get deeper into the industrial espionage element of Sergey. Lily meets with the handler that he had, who also, again, has a conversation, basically reinforcing in her own mind, you know, what she kind of already knows to be true on some level, that something's off. You knew him, you know, maybe he's not the person completely who you thought he was, but you knew him well enough to know that he wouldn't just disappear, he wouldn't just kill himself. And in the line of work that we do, that usually means that somebody else got to him. So did you have any thoughts about the whole meeting at the base of like the Golden Gate Bridge with the
when she
handler?
meets with the handler?
Yeah.
We can definitely go into that. I mean, I just want to hit on a few things real quick.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, just from a character standpoint, like Lily choosing to climb up the fire escape to get into God, what's the guy's name?
Jamie.
Her ex, Jamie. Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, I mean, I feel like it was understandable. I think in the first episode there was something like that. But it's like at this point it doesn't like why. And again, it's like it points to something about this character, about this person, that they operate in strange, unpredictable, odd ways. Because who would choose to do that? Like, obviously, she could have just knocked on the front door at this point. It's not.
Right.
It wouldn't have been that big a deal for him to let her in. But this is how she chooses to do it. I thought that was interesting. I also thought it was pretty cool that Jamie was playing Dark Souls when she shows
Right.
up on the fire escape, and of course he dies.
Well, he even
Um,
says like I died, and I get
Yeah.
there's a part of me that was like I wanna like examine that scene because it goes so fast, and
Right.
like wonder if like there wasn't like more of a like clue in on like did that have greater meaning for like the setting that they're in, like either Sergei
Sure.
or even Jamie himself, like in that moment, like is this kind of like a nice little wink,
Right. Well, and it's just
at
like
the camera.
we know, like the moment he comes in contact with Lily again, he's like, oh, I'm
Yeah, and
fucking
that
screwed.
too,
This is gonna be a disaster. I
right?
know that.
She shows up, and it's like right at that moment too. So it's kind of like
Yep.
the touch of death,
And
you know?
he doesn't have a choice. He's going to help her. He's going to engage her because he can't help himself.
Right,
It's like
exactly.
built into him. And Dark Souls also, I don't know if you've ever played this game or know much about it, but death is it's impossible to, you will die and die and die and die and die. It's just, that's how the game is designed. Death
Right.
is woven into the experience at a really extreme level. So I think it's pretty cool that that was the specific game that he chose to
Hmm.
put in. Um, let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Heart surgeons who smoke. What is this? Oh, I think when they're talking, he's talking to Jamie's talking to Lily about the encryption on his phone, about and he's like, it's outdated, right? And he
Hmm.
uses the phrase "heart surgeons who smoke," which I
Hmm.
just thought was a great line because it's like, again, the difference between knowing and doing.
Hmm.
You can have all the knowledge in the world; it doesn't mean you're going to make the right choices.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and Samir does make a choice, kind of insight on the her using the fire escape is basically like she's putting herself in there. Like it's not exactly like she's waiting for the invitation or letting him make the choice of letting her in. She
Oh
is like
yes, she's not giving
putting
him a
herself in there.
choice.
Right.
She never gives him a choice. Oh, oh, that's actually fascinating. Hmm, that's interesting. So she's almost like a acting as a surrogate to the simulation, like the quantum computer, like that seemingly isn't giving anyone a choice.
Well, as long as I mean, she never buys into the tramline idea. It's kind of like a like you say, chicken and egg thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the fact that you saw this that's going to lead you down the path? Like,
Right.
it's all tied to itself, but it's kind of self fulfilling, or is it because you're going to act in defiance of it? Um,
And
we kind of get
mm,
a hint of that later on, where it's just like. Um, Lily basically is told what she will do, and she's like, "No, there's no way. Like, why would I do that?"
right.
And
Yeah.
she basically tries to make it that way. Like, it's like, I'm not going to do anything related to these people. And sure enough, it's like all those actions actually end up taking her right to where they said you're going to be. Um,
Yeah. 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 And it's well, it's like maybe it's a little nod to you know there are things that we can surrender our power to them if we make
mhm.
that choice. And like Lily is, she's presenting that to Jamie as like, I'm not going to give you that choice. And he could reject it, but
Right.
it's forceful enough, and it's kind of built into him to want to be close to this person, to help this
Exactly.
person.
Yeah.
And so it's like he's surrendering to it. And there's all these parallels and connections with all the characters and how they behave, and with the bigger picture of what's going on. And I think it's really nuanced, and so can be easily overlooked.
Hmm.
But it's it's a lot of fun to try, and it's fun picking it out, and that's why it's great to talk about it. Okay, so from the scene with Jamie and Lily, the next thing I have in my note is Kenton, the security, the head security guy
Mm-hmm.
at Amaya, he's concerned. He's I think stops by Forrest's house, and he's concerned that
Yeah, yeah.
it's not, the police are good. They think Sergei's a suicide, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not over for Lily. Um, and this is, you would said pretty definitively to me that you felt like Kenton was kind of in the inner, like he also knew
There's certain
everything.
things,
But
yeah, as
I feel like he more and more evident, especially as we go through these episodes. It's like I'm convinced that he does not have any clue what's coming.
yeah, I there was another scene in the next episode that makes me think that maybe he wasn't in on it either.
Yeah,
But then like it's kind of like he had a follow up on it that I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, did how much of this does he know? Because he mentions tram lines, and I'm like, is this just like he thinks his boss is like this guy who believes in like a fatalism that he doesn't know is tied to this quantum machine that they're running, or is it just like he lost his wife and kids and he's sunk in this past? Because there's a part of it where the I believe I have to get into it because it's future episode, but the whole like, is there only one universe
right.
and that's it, or is there a multiverse and there's parallel universes based on every little thing just being a small bit off? And it seems like he's obsessed with following this one universe that's certain, and there's only one line to go down.
Yes.
And it's primarily to do with the fact that there was nothing he could have done any different on the day his wife and daughter died that could have possibly changed their fates. Uh,
Mm. Oh,
and
right.
like it's supposed to be his way of forgiving himself because he was on the phone with his wife and then they get in the car accident and they're dead. And like I think he has this immense survivor guilt, or like being he witnessed it as it happened, as it was going on, and just to forgive himself, absolve himself of what he has probably carried around as the responsibility of that.
Yeah.
Like he's prescribed to this. There's only one thing that could have ever happened. There's only one outcome that could have come from it all. So I feel like that's why he's so obsessive about that point of there are no other universes. I'm sure there was a different guy before that accident, as far as like being
Sure.
open to that possibility.
Yeah. I know that the guy's Kenton's trying to convince him to
Move on.
like maybe
Yeah.
maybe spend some of this ungodly amount of money you have to maybe move out of
Yeah.
this house, get a new
Right.
car. And Forrest says, I'm not holding on to the past, I'm letting go of it. And Kenton says, your tram lines. And Forrest
Mm.
says, ours. Um, so obviously Kenton's he's very aware of this tram line idea. Um, I don't. He clearly doesn't embrace it. He doesn't believe it, which tells me again, because he doesn't see it as ours. He doesn't see it as actually legitimate, which kind of tells me that I don't think he's seen the simulation actually function. I
Yeah.
don't think he's
Very
seen it.
possible. No,
Now,
no. Yeah.
and that doesn't mean that Forrest, when he felt like it was appropriate or needed, hasn't given him information
Yeah.
that was pertinent to getting a job done or something. But this guy's clueless about what's really going on, in my mind.
Yeah. There'll be another scene in the third episode that I'll kind of touch upon when we get there too.
So I think the next thing in my notes anyway, is the Jesus on the cross depiction.
Yes, yes. This is, for me, the other big moment in this episode, just because it's the first time we see the machine up and running. And we finally kind of know what they're going for, what they're doing with this.
What is Samir's, before we move forward, he's saying Forrest is trying to save Kenton in that scene by saying save Lily. I think that might be a little later in the episode or in the next one. I do recall a scene where he's, Forrest is saying, but nothing's going to happen to her, right? I'm not.
Yeah, there's a scene in the next episode where there's a ledge and things involved. Yeah, but that's a really big one to break down. We'll get there.
We'll get there. This is the first real. We get to see this thing really work and function for the first time.
Right, and so actually, like my little avatar I've done is kind of based on the way this whole thing works. You have like these like particles, and it's kind of fuzzy. You kind of get a sense of what you're looking at, but you don't really. And I don't know if in this episode they even bother with the audio. I know in the next episode they do.
Yeah, there's no audio. These first things, they haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, it's once we even get to the audio, even that's like a bizarre mess as well. But it's looking at like one of these main things, and again playing with godlike imagery over again in this show. But this was supposed to be, I guess, a groundbreak for them, even though they've been able to look at things in the past and present. This is like the marker of the calendar 2,000 years ago,
right,
sort of thing. This is how far back we can actually.
I find it fascinating, that as a show, and this is very typical for most modern shows. It pokes and jabs at religion and Christianity on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
But then, what's the first imagery that we're shown the quantum simulation depicting to them is Jesus on the cross, which is clearly it's just saying this is an important moment in history, and it actually, in the context of the show, it actually happened.
Right.
Don't you find a contradiction there?
Well, in a sense, and at the same time, I think there's a parallel of the fact that there's been numerous attempts, like for science to prove Jesus was there by people who are believers, right? And they've never had like that one standout moment. Like most of the ones that they think they have turn out to be something else, and this would be kind of like that, another way of like wanting to get that absolute defining thing. Was Jesus real, and what really happened with him? No one really has like a true eyewitness account. It's kind of like all further down the line as far as like they've been able to tell. So yeah, I thought it was funny that they would choose that. I thought in a way thought it was kind of hokey too, but it does make for like a really cool first.
I don't know.
impression.
Like if you had to choose, what would be the first, if you could only choose one moment to use this for, what would it be? I mean, would it, I don't know. It's an interesting question. Samir, I watched the whole series as it was being released, and then I've been watching these. I watched the episodes not long before we do this show. So yeah, I've seen the whole thing. I'm just, your reference to
at least I believe so.
To save Kitten by saying save Lily. I don't think it was in that particular scene that we were referencing.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but I could be wrong. Like I said, I thought it was more, or like what you said.
I think
like
it's
the whole,
an episode.
Get out of the house. Yeah, you have all the money in the world, and like one of the things you said was like it's not about money anymore for him, and like that was like one of those telling things. Like that his new obsession, his new thing is this DEVS.
That's all that exists.
Yeah,
nothing else matters. So what other? I think you had some things you wanted to say about this sequence.
Well, there was only just I thought it was kind of, I guess it's sort of talking about commentary on modernism and feminism, certainly in film and movies and TV. There's a part where what's his name here, Stewart, the guy who is actually with the control, trying to dial it in, and he's like, "Yeah, come on, baby, work with me," or something like that. And Lyndon, who is like his friend, and like younger and androgynous. I don't know whether they are trying to play anything. Like I'm really confused on Lyndon. I would say it's a girl. It was just like a tomboy, but I'm not sure if there's like a transition element. They never really dive really into that. Like, is there like an identity thing with Lyndon? But I always figured it was a girl, but I didn't know what they're trying to pass a girl as a guy for real. Like, there's just be some young dude, and they just got a girl
Oh,
player.
yeah,
Like,
I know. I think it in reality that is a I think it's a female playing a male
okay,
type
so, yeah,
role.
so
But I don't know
I
in the
was
context of the show is probably like I think for the most part Alex Garland was given total creative freedom to tell his story, but
mhm.
agendas are real, and
Well, there's a
I
back
think
and
I think
forth.
they were like, look, you got to get this in there, and you got to get that in. However you want to do it, but it's got to be there because it's trending, and we want this messaging. So
Yeah,
it's an obligatory fucking. It's in almost every show you watch now.
yeah,
Unavoidable.
and even though it's like in a passing minute, I'd say like it's not like anything major. Essentially, it's like you're out of touch with the world when you say that. It's not some chick or whatever, and then he's kind of like, oh, for fuck's sake, you like chill out. And for saying I don't know anything, you all don't fucking know anything. He's like, you don't know history, you don't know art, like like there's so much that you don't know that you think you can just uh, get rid of at your own convenience to make a point. And it's just funny because he like basically ignores the like lecturing that he gets and just continues to say it as they go on.
Yeah, that was a really cool scene because it's, you know, generational. It's, um, again, he doesn't respect this person's knowledge base or experience, and I have to say, I feel like this character. I don't know what is the older guy's name. I can't recall.
Stewart. It's Stewart.
Stewart.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout the entire series, I would say that he seems the most grounded and to be the most aware of all the different things that are going on.
Yeah, he's supposed to kind of like have like a wisdom, right? Like there's knowledge and there's wisdom, like how to use it, what we're really doing here. He's sort of the one who of the team is sort of tasked with like saying we've opened Pandora's box now by getting this thing to work. Like we've had to so far this has seemed like a really cool, neat idea, but now we'll have to look at ourselves um, behind a box and wonder what we really are if like this thing can make us on the other side of it.
I think it's really interesting that Hex Allen was just like hated almost all the characters in the show. Um, and
Well, he's
I'm
the
not
least
gonna,
hateable.
I can't, yeah. Well, he said earlier that he basically hated all the characters, and I really can't, I'm not gonna say I can argue with that.
I didn't really necessarily find someone like as a champion. However, I did find like really like Kenton. I find really interesting. Like when he's on camera, like you really get the sense like this is a predator kind of dude. Like he seems unassuming, but like you watch how he looks at people and he'll stare them down
Yeah,
and stuff. Like he has this
yeah,
presence that's like kind of unnerving.
yeah.
Um,
And
and at the
if you've ever known anyone like that, where they're willing to stare at you in the eyeball for like uninterrupted,
Yeah,
like
it's
it's
intense.
it can be very
Yeah,
unnerving.
and yeah, Lily is like the character I kind of don't like just because I feel like they made her out to be special, but I was like, what's so special about her? Like, I didn't really see it,
Yeah, I'm
but
not. Again, it's like, are these characters likable that's you know, Forrest. I do. I mean, I really connected with the character from a story standpoint. But is he likable? Probably not. He's a selfish son of a bitch. I mean,
Right?
I don't know that any of them are necessarily likable, except maybe Stewart is actually really. He is. Now that I think about it, Stewart is pretty fucking badass, man. He's chill. He fucking has, you know, a really nice knowledge base. He appreciates what they're doing. Um, yeah, I kind of dig Stewart, and he has a great fucking poetry scene like later in the series that I absolutely love.
Um, I would just say I like Lyndon and Stewart. They're like the odd couple, and you can tell like even though like on some level they get on each other's nerves and like
The Odd
they like
Couple, you're
bicker,
right.
you know, like they also have like a deep respect for each other, and like he's like later on we'll see like he's like really trying to look out for Lyndon,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
and like he does like care about Lyndon, even though like it's kind of like, you know, maybe they're a pain in the ass to each other on some level, like they
Yeah,
are like they got like a friendship too.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it, you know, I don't have a problem with characters that aren't likable as long as it serves the story, as long as it
Right.
serves what is, you know, trying to be achieved. And I think, you know, I think that these characters do serve that story and do, they do work in that sense. And maybe not liking them is part of the point, you know? So, you know, I think things, everything, so many things today, it's always trying to present you with this, you know, we want a character that everybody's going to fall in love with. And it's like, well,
For everyone, yeah.
maybe that shouldn't be the goal all the time. Maybe the characters need to just, they need to serve the story you're trying to tell.
Hmm.
And if people hate them, it's fine. Even if they're the protagonist, the viewer can dislike them as long as they're keeping them pulled into the story that's being told. You know, that's fine. So, let's see. Was there anything else you wanted to say about this, the first depiction here?
um Nothing else really stands out. I guess you could say visually, because there's going to be a progression as the show goes on. You know, it's largely black and white. Like there does seem to be some like kind of hue to the gray value of it, but you know, un it's incomplete, right? It's spotty, and it's black and white. I mean, to me, it's kind of just like this starkness, this coldness to it.
Yeah,
Um, that like it again is just like you look at the whole set of the Dev's building, like that interior, where it's just like this glowing, pulsing, golden, like warm hued thing, and then you go to this. It definitely seems to like just kind of I think is another you know, subliminal way to show that this focus on this one reality um, only thing is actually kind of like maybe just like a cold, harsh version of what is the truth, or you know, like a twist on it, I guess. Um, because we'll find out later on as in spoilers, guys, or talk about all the show. Uh, we find out later on, like when they remove like this hard press order mandate from Forrest, you know, to get it to better uh, accuracy of this one timeline. That would, if you remove all those constraints, it actually gives you a true focus. It's just like you don't know if it's absolutely what happened in your timeline or not, but it will give you like at least a version of it where you can see like in true color and sound, like everything going on.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah, episode
okay,
two,
so
like yeah, for me it was just like they kind of moved some pieces on the chessboard, but like I
I
said,
don't
I'm
know,
more
man.
into.
I think I felt that way too initially,
Mhm.
but then I kept finding like I'm like, oh well, wait, this is a little interesting. So there's a point where I think this is soon after we're shown the Jesus on the cross depiction, Jamie shows up at Lily's apartment, and he's got a concern because he's helped her crack the
messenger.
Sergei's phone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he comes by and he predicts she's already
met
used
with the guy.
She's already contacted the Russian and done all that, right? But he comes by and he's like, whoa, I realized everything I know about you. You might not just use this to get in and see what it is. You might actually try to contact who's on the other end of it. I found this to be really important because, again, it's another nod to how the whole simulation works, how the quantum computer even works to begin with, because Jamie being able to deduce that Lily will use it the way she did and being absolutely correct about it is no different than the simulation running, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think that's just an important... Human beings are doing this all the time with each other, where the closer you get to someone, the more intimately you know someone, the more likely you'll be able to predict their actions and behaviors,
right,
even into the future.
Right. And I mean, what if we go into more of, especially Ex Machina is like the one I'm like dying to like get to, because it's the entirety of the idea of like doing a true advanced AI that simulates human thought is that you actually have to break down how you think to truly get to that point, and how you understand. And essentially you'll find out that what you thought might have been a free will or a free choice of your own really wasn't. And like if you tried to tie it down, if I had to force you, at what moment did you absolutely decide? You went through and you had the list of choices in front of you, and even that, it's like you didn't think of everything you could have done. You picked that thing, like for a fact that that it was all you, and it wasn't just like I feel like that. I feel like doing that. So yeah, you can find out that things like even just talking about a subject will start to steer people to thinking a certain way.
Right.
You can like they've done numerous studies where it's just like you can show like old people and say like depressing weather or something like that, and people will actually work slower. Like it's not, you didn't even tell them anything or you just had these things around them, or they read a story that was like that, and it influenced everything they did after that point. I think it was actually like taking a test or a survey. Sure. They found that like if you used happier, younger imagery in a story, that people would go through it faster than if it went the other way. And like it was like almost like complete correlation across the board. So it's like you find out like you're not as self-contained as you think you might be, and there's more influences on you. And so certainly he's able to kind of think on it, after the fact, after he left it in her hands, and then come to the conclusion, okay, you're probably going to use this. But
he knew exactly how she was going to use it.
But he wasn't able to see through like her like saying, yeah, you're probably right, and not see that.
Well, that is an interesting point. Like she's still able to lie to him to his face, and he buys it.
Right. And I mean, you could infinitely dissect it, but yeah, there is this whole notion, and I kind of thought even in the exchange between Kenton and the agent, like the whole notion of like that's not your real name or something like that. Like there's sort of a touch upon it there, like knowing the person and everything like that. And he was trying to say to the guy like, don't bring Lily into this because I don't want to have to kill her if you bring her into it. And he's like, don't act like that's truly your thing, is trying to save this girl rather than protect this
exactly
company. Like so
trying to present her, they're always, and this is a very common tactic, is like, well, we have to protect the innocent in this, right? Don't you want to protect the innocent? And Lily is literally I think the symbolism of the meaning of the name Lily is innocence, and also I think a reference to the Virgin Mary, and like so even the name was chosen specifically to represent the kind of innocence in this thing. And I also in that when Kenton kills the Russian handler, this is another big piece of evidence that he has no idea what's going to happen in the future, because Lily puts the fuck you sign. He says, he gives her instructions like, if you want to work with us, the Russian handler, he's like, if you want to do this, do this specific thing. And she puts a fuck you sign in the window, which means she was never going to work with this guy anyway. So Kenton killing him, Kenton doing what he did was, it didn't have to be done.
Right. Yeah.
So he obviously he doesn't know. He doesn't know that she's going to put the fuck you sign in. So he clearly isn't being given the information about future events.
I thought, it's funny you say that, because I'm kind of thinking more on my first time viewing it, and then the series of events that's after the fight happens, right? And I was thinking the whole time, like, the whole reason why he followed this guy and like knew where he lived, everything, like essentially I guess he just did old school sleuthing, but like the whole reason he even picked that fight was knowing that he would come out like alive, like he had a advantage.
I don't think so.
Well, now you say that,
I mean, and he would have known the night, like he did get stabbed a bit, and he seemed awfully surprised about that blade coming at him. So I don't think this guy has any knowledge about what's to come. You're probably right, but I just thought there's a convenient lineup on the Sergei night, and then I thought, like, why would he do this unless he knew like he was going to come out alive? But now that you say, like, and even in the simulation scenes that open up, I believe it's part of the montage of episode 3. Like, this is part of that, where she posts the note on the window. You're right, and it's in the simulation. I think it's done in the simulation screen, right? Yeah. So this guy definitely. I think they kind of maybe were making us wonder if this guy was in on it in episode 1, but to me it just becomes really clear that no, he's just a tool. He's another tool in Forrest's toolbox. He doesn't give a fuck about this guy. He's on a need-to-know basis only.
Right.
Okay. So I think that's everything for episode 2. We probably went way more in depth on it than you anticipated.
No, I was ready for episode 3 because I was like, oh, there's so much shit I was picking up on that, and more of what I was into. So are
you up for it?
Yeah, I'm up for it.
Do you want to do it? I'm down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the whole opening, cold open. I don't think, is there any like DEVS intro? I never noticed it put one up. Like, it seemed like a different thing.
Oh no, it's just this really cool. The cool little. No, I think when it starts, it's just like usually just imagery, sound, and then so like at some point you get the cool little like ring imagery with the logo.
Yeah.
That's it, and I love that.
Yeah, so you just like let into, and I mean, it's really discombobulating, like watching this like montage they do of just one simulation thing after another. We see the Jesus one, so we know we're looking at the DEVS quantum computer simulation. Then it goes into I couldn't really make out stuff for a while. I saw what looked like a marching army. Joan of Arc, some sort of speech that was going on. I couldn't. I feel like it's something historical, but I couldn't tell you who it was or where it was. But it looked like a dude, like either like in a statesman's or general's like uniform, giving a speech, and then it ends up on Amaya, the girl blowing dandelion. Seeds.
Right.
Then you get Sergei being suffocated, Lily at the window putting up the fuck you sign, and I think that was the end of it, which is, I guess, tying it into like the present day, like you're going through what I had to assume was also progression of timeline, like the the changing of history, like the major moments and stuff. And from there, I don't really have anything except we now get the rules, which I wrote down. The rules that they've given everyone that works in the DEVS building that uses the simulation is that they don't look forwards in time, and they don't invade privacy, because we come upon
yes,
Katie.
The invasion of privacy scene.
Yeah.
I love this bit.
Marilyn Monroe having sex with
Arthur Miller.
Yeah, Arthur Miller. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a funny little exchange too, like having Stuart be like, "Well, everyone came into this world from somebody having sex. It's no like big deal." And she tries to throw it back in his face, like, "Well, maybe we should have everyone come in here and watch you have sex." And he kind of like,
he's like,
he's like, "Yeah, you know,
whatever." I don't care. And I do think there is something very different about, like, if you're talking about the context of this simulation, this actual moment, that's very different than pornography to me, which is intentional. You know, it's created with the purpose of something, of voyeuristic indulgence of people. But this is an actual moment of human beings fucking. It's like, it's not a, you know, and I agree with Stuart on that. It's not a big, dude, get over yourself. In the same breath, she's like, don't invade someone's privacy while they're having sex, but by all means, let's watch a man get murdered on the cross, or a woman get burned at the stake. That's completely fine.
Well, and then like
that's not an invasion at all.
her next like suggestion was the assassination of Kennedy.
Right.
Grassy Knoll.
Yeah. It's
so,
like, you know, it really does. It brings up a lot of questions about, well, what do you mean by, why is that private and this not private? Because someone's naked? Or
and you certainly get the sense that he knows, and probably London knows, that like the rules have already been broken multiple times, and like they know, and it's just a question of how much they know.
Right.
No one seems really all that concerned about Sergei disappearing like that night. You know, it's kind of like, it seems like they know that much. No real concern on that. But like, it's kind of like he felt like it's rich coming from you that those are the rules for us.
Yeah, and of course he doesn't say that to her, but he says it to Lyndon.
To Lyndon, yeah.
Again, reinforcing their, you know, they have this really tight bond. They're experiencing this at from very different perspectives, but certainly very much together on it. And yeah, I just found it fascinating, her take on this, like her being offended at, this is what you're gonna, we've created the most phenomenal thing in modern times, and you're going to turn it into a porn machine. Yeah. It's like, this isn't porn.
And yet there is like a funny thing about that, is like every time a method of distribution happens, like, you know, you're able to do printmaking, somebody starts printmaking porn, and that's like one of the first reasons it's out there. Like when the press is finally made, like, it's like porn becomes one of the most circulated things.
Yeah.
You know, every introduction of like the new like medium that is driving things, it's like porn rules over all. Like, and like in terms of the internet, it's like what, 70% of websites and website data is like porn. So it's like, it's always there. And it's kind of funny that like, even in terms of what they're making here, it's like watching someone have sex is part of their first use of the technology.
Yeah, it's that is actually really funny, and it is true. It's inevitable. Her being you know, it was kind of like, it was I don't know. She's the coldest, most, I feel like she, more than anyone in the series, she's turned off her humanity. More than anyone. And it's like, really, this should just be an analytical certainty for you, lady. Like, you can't be appalled by this.
And
But
that's kind of
still,
where like I thought she might be like the very, I mean, I'd say very mild flavor of like the feminist mouthpiece of
yeah,
things.
yeah, there could be a little bit of that
But
going
it's
on.
not overstated. And again, like I remember watching from the interview that Alex Garland had. He said like he's more interested in the conversation than trying to actually preach something towards somebody. Is just like having
Yeah,
the back and forth, and that the dialogue is more interesting than like trying to reach a destination or an endpoint on the whole thing.
yeah, and I'd say by and large he does really well at that. This might be one of the more forced components of it, but
But it was funny,
not
just
bad.
like
It
in the
was.
exchange from
Yeah,
Stewart back at her.
yeah. Um, so what do you have next on here? I have
Um, so I actually noticed because I think it switches over to the senator coming in.
yeah.
But there was a shot again of that a Maya statue that
Mm,
was like in the trees of the forest, but it looked like it was like doves flying around, like it was white birds, and I was just
yeah.
like, that's really like this is the Pacific North, well, San Francisco area, and I'm just like, are they just like in there in number, or is it just like more the symbolism? It's a far shot, so there's no like calling out what the bird is, but that's distinctly what it looked like to me,
Yeah.
and it's again like playing with that imagery, and even when the helicopter leaves later on, uh, like the Age of Aquarius song is playing in the show,
Oh
and
yeah,
like
we're gonna get to that.
yeah,
Hold on.
the
Yeah.
moment it hits Age of Aquarius, it's like right a shot directly at that statue through the
Yeah, dude.
trees.
Yeah, I found that pretty fascinating too. So when there was a you know back and forth with the senator and Forrest, of course, the government is very keen on knowing what's going on in the DEVS building. But she delivers this line, the senator. Um, she says AI is going to create 60% unemployment.
Right. Yeah.
Instagram makes them feel like shit about their lives. Twitter makes them feel reviled. Facebook destroyed democracy.
Well,
um, and that
like it
I'm like, and I'm like, really?
coming from a
Facebook destroyed
senator.
democracy? Is this? And again, I feel like this is a little heavy-handed. Of like, is that
Yes,
because Trump got elected? Is that why you're
I
saying Facebook destroyed democracy?
I felt like this was like a mouthpiece element of it. Like I
Yeah,
was kind of taken aback by the whole thing because it was a little too
but
pointed,
who was
bullet point.
delivering it?
Right, you're right.
A
A senator.
politician.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like I definitely felt because I know that Garland is like kind of into the whole idea of like who are these tech moguls and what are their true aspirations, and even if they don't know they're bringing about these things, they're bringing about these things. So I felt like that was like a commentary, like kind of coming like I almost felt like the hand puppet element, like moving the mouth of the senator, but it's somebody else's thoughts or something. But like you say, like a politician would try to get at that.
Well,
Um,
I just feel like I think it's interesting that that's how he chose to deliver this rhetoric, and
mhm.
it's beyond obvious that Forrest has absolutely, if not zero respect, negative respect,
Right, exactly.
none whatsoever for
Yeah,
this person. Like you're out of your depth here. Just fucking,
yeah, yeah.
you
Like,
know,
oh, what does it do? It predicts the weather. Yeah, the
yeah,
weather.
things like that. Stuff
Yeah,
like that.
stuff and things.
And she's like, "Well, I see no reason we can't just work together."
Right, right.
Um,
That was, I think, the closing part of it. Like even though like there seems to be this animosity, like, well, I don't see why we can't just work together on this.
yeah, I don't, that was pretty fascinating. The next scene that I kind of that struck me was there's this little blip of, I don't know, it's like a think tank, a little group discussion
Hmm.
going on in devs, and but we are all Stardust
Space Stardust, yeah.
back in the background. And I have to, and this is like way it's like completely off topic, but I got to share it because it's hilarious. Um, yeah, there was this thing I came in contact with a while ago. Um, so I'm just
Oh
gonna play it.
God.
Have you seen this?
Hi, I am Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I'm here to tell you how fucking rad space is.
This might get you struck, dude.
I don't
Make
care.
this journey,
Don't give a
we need
shit.
to use our imagination, our mind's eye, and this J I just rolled. The distance to the edge of the observable universe is 13.8 billion light years. Doesn't that make you feel small? Like nothing even matters. Damn.
You know, there's
The
actually
closest neighbor
yeah.
to the Milky Way is the
What's that?
The fact that he said that, like I was gonna say before you brought this up, like the we are all stardust. It's like in one interpretation, it could seem like it's a poetic like outcome. You know, like it took a star to die to bring life to being, or make the elements that bring life to being. Um, and then at the other point, it's just like you're kind of trash at the same time. Like there's this great quote from like Christopher Hitchens. I used to watch like a ton of like interviews and stuff with him, and he's like, yeah, you know, you all know that great line that we're all stardust. Well, another way to look at it is that we're radioactive waste. Like, we're
Exactly.
leftovers.
Well, and I guess I wanted, you know, and of course there's a moment in that video, that parody, where he actually says it, but I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's fucking funny.
I'll have to look that up. That
Here,
was really good.
I'll let me drop the link to
But yeah,
people.
it can be, you know, in one sense, like, oh wow, you know, it took a star to make you, but at the same time, it's kind of like we're all meant to like turn into this dust or something eventually. Like it's kind of at the same time like, yeah, like you're insignificant in a way.
Well,
And
yeah, and this
I
is the
found
thing.
that
Yeah.
like the neon sign at this place that, and like it's front and center. Like I couldn't help but see it too, and I'm like, dude, that is just like a way to like imagine walking through the gates of an office and like the first thing you're met with is like we're all stardust. Like you're all the one thing, but you are insignificant. You are a cog in the machine, and
Yep.
all the yeah.
It's exactly it. And this is the thing, like, I've spent quite a bit of time, quite a bit of years going down rabbit holes, doing hundreds of hours of research. And there's a lot. I mean, basically, I don't necessarily. There is so much about what Alex Garland obsesses on and what he chooses to speak to, like quantum computing and these concepts of we are all stardust and AI, artificial intelligence, all of these things. I don't actually think any of this stuff is actually necessarily viable or accurate. And there was a point when I thought, well, this is gonna all my enjoyment I have for this sci-fi, like this medium of storytelling that delves into these topics, I'm gonna stop enjoying them. But in fact, the opposite has been true. I view it now as a vehicle to get to conversations about things, like philosophical conversations. Do I think that I came from Stardust? Absolutely fucking not. I don't. I don't agree with the sentiment.
Like I
But
say,
I'm not opposed. Like if that's what you want to, if that's what you want to embrace, which I feel is a extremely nihilistic view and very strange, that's fine. But I don't agree with it. But I don't deny that it's a very interesting, heady concept that can create a backdrop for interesting stories and concepts.
Well, I think this is a bit tangential. I don't want to go too long on it, but you know, there's kind of very, I would say, small and like almost unimaginative ways. Like if you read the Bible, if you read like creation stories, like it's very simple stuff. It's like Moses went to the top of a mountain and talked to a burning bush, you know, and it's like that's not really like when you think of, you know, how would God choose to interact with you, or what the imagery could be, anything. You know, this is the creator of the universe, the cosmos, of heaven and earth, and it's like the burning bush is just kind of like you know. But you know, if you go into science and you know, it's like a star had to die, a star had to go supernova, you know, explosive force so powerful it wipes out things within I think about 50 light years, if I remember right. An explosion so bright you can, it's how we measure, you know, galaxies and superclusters, you know, and shit like that. You know, like it's a grand spectacle, and like that had to be there in order to get the elements, in order to, you know, infuse that into the mixture.
Yeah. But how is that? Everything you just said sounds like spiritual mumbo jumbo. It's spirituality. Believing it takes absolute faith.
Yeah.
And I find that very. I think modern science has delved into a level of spiritual faith based nonsense in a way that can't. And Garland is the absolute. He's a prophet for this shit. He's obsessed with all of it.
The danger is, I think, believing that it is a science where it's a theory. You know, like you think you have the hard evidence, you think you know everything there is to know. You know, you could look at, say, the current reaction to like the coronavirus.
Yeah.
The medical field is a practice. It's not a science. No one interacts with a virus or a bacteria in the same level. There's stuff you're constantly exposed to day by day that will never hit you in such a way. I wish I remember what it was. There's some kind of like, I think it's like meningitis or something like that, that gets into your brain and into your like nervous system, the spinal fluid and stuff.
Right.
And it does this reaction where essentially your body's organs shut down. And like you'll have somebody where all of a sudden like this thing takes over. It's a bacteria that infects inside their brain. Like, so there's no way of getting at it. Like I think they have to pump you full of like antibiotics and just hope it takes. But like essentially your organs all of a sudden go into failure. Like you'll turn purple within hours of this thing happening. Yeah. And most people like lose their limbs, if not their lives. So that like you will become a complete amputee. And like it's like this thing it's always out there. It's just it rarely ever crosses like that barrier into your brain. But it's like it's one of these like things, if it happened to you, it would like horrify the shit out of you. And like if I saw somebody turning purple like that, I'd be like, get the fuck away. I don't like there might be zero risk of transmission, but it's like I'm not gonna touch you with like a 10-foot pole. Like whatever the fuck happened to you, I don't want to happen to me. But like it's like that's out there, and it's like you never hear about it till like you finally see it. There's stuff like that constantly. You know, my girl being a nurse, there was like somebody at her hospital. I forget what the infection was, but it was you breathe in this fungus, and it literally will like scar up your lungs and your esophagus and stuff like that. Like it grows inside of like your breathing system. And this lady was just like, she was like, I just please kill me. Can you just put me out? Like she was begging to die because she was in so much misery. Yeah. And it ended up, sad story, it ended up actually killing her. And I'm just like, you know, this shit exists out there, and yet we're focused on, and this is like a young, healthy woman that just happened, and it came from they say it comes from bat feces and shit, like the fungus. So it's like fucking bats, man.
Bats, man. The culprit once again. Yeah. They deliver rabies to us. They deliver COVID. They deliver fungus that you can't fucking deal with.
It's a long tangent, but essentially right now everyone's acting like it's an absolute, like the mask will save you or it won't save you and all this stuff. And it's just like, man, this stuff has been around long, like over and over again, like these things happen. and humanity is so far survived. Like I think it's just overhyped. It's election year. This is
Agreed.
what like the whole thing's
Agreed.
banked on.
Okay, we need a palate cleanser. We're gonna
Expansive
continue this.
Andromeda galaxy. Whoa, that is a pretty weird word. Andromeda. 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 We all were created from stars. Everything is star stuff. this pizza, this cheese, and this pepperoni is stars. We're all. Oh, how is that made from stars? I think that's basil. A generation ago.
Okay, sorry. I just felt like we had to lighten the mood.
Yeah.
Just a hair, talking about fungus eroding people's lives and shit. Okay. So we're moving on from the neon sign, and what's next? The thing I have next is
Actually, what stuck out to me was the next thing in my notes is green face with orange spots. It's some kind of like head statue.
Shit! Did you picked up on that too? That's interesting. Let me. I think I have an image. For
I
that.
meant to kind of research that, but I didn't. It looked like an African statue or something. But yeah, essentially behind this we have Kenton and the senator security guard.
Yes.
And what I found interesting is like it's kind of just like two guys who've done the job talking to each other. But I thought it was funny that this security guy for the senator is just like wishing, hoping that one day, that sometime, shit will go down and he will actually do something for once. And I just thought it was like a funny thing. It's just like, for the most part, like they're kind of on hold. He's just like bored to tears, guarding this woman, being her detail, like wishing something would happen. I'm like, there's sort of like this element of like diving into what about the people that work for you that are under you. Like, here's a guy who's like itching to just get some action, and what that might mean as far as like compromising you on some level. It's
Right.
like that, like this is in the back of his head.
And of course, Kenton had just fucking killed somebody.
Right.
Yeah. I think there's a play on, all the actions in the private sector. I think it was a nod to that.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I found it interesting that the scene before this, Lily's kind of setting up management with her, history of schizophrenia and that kind of thing. But right after the mention of schizophrenia is when we get this shot of this beaded, really intricately beaded, like head, this art that you were speaking about. And then it, in the background, we see these two. I don't know. It just, to me, it's like, these transitions, I think they, everything is chosen for a reason. So yeah, I
will just say, back to the characters, like I thought it was kind of fucked up that Lily and her friend seemingly like use this other chick, I forget her name.
Yeah.
I think to like see the idea, like, oh well, she's been hospitalized before, she's had these things. And also, if you're just a first time viewer, like it's sort of also baiting you in a way for like the scene that's to come later on.
Did you pick up on it when you watched it the first time?
On the head and stuff?
No, that she was tricking them.
Not till after the fact. It did seem forced when it got to like the point where like she started like, going into Fibonacci numbers and shit like that, and you're just like, this is getting really weird. Like there's like, I guess in a sense of knowing the character,
Yeah.
you know, as the viewer, and you know, we're sort of given all the information. Like, there's no sign of her having been crazy, and she actually feels like emotionally detached, like in the conversation with her mother, her interaction with Jamie. Like, there's kind of this part of her where she's like almost emotionless to like anything about anybody else.
Well, don't you feel? I mean, I do feel like they set her up as being abnormal, at the
Yeah,
very least, because first of all, Jamie's reaction to her, his knowing that she's danger, the fact that she left him like basically at the drop of a hat for
yeah.
another person. I mean, she's sporadic, she's
In a
unpredictable.
sense,
Um,
I didn't know if she was schizo or not, but I mean, you had no reason, I
schizo.
guess. You had no reason to second guess, like, you know, this interaction between her and her friends. But like the fact that like it was like, you know about what happened back in Brooklyn or whatever in New York,
Yeah.
and it was like ambiguous enough that I was like, what the fuck is really going on here? Um, Oh, by the way, this shot of like Kenton and the screen,
I
this is
loved it.
another one of those reflection things.
He's so ominous back there.
Yeah, it was closer in, and she was sitting down, and
Yeah.
it almost looks like he's sitting behind her, looking at
Mm.
her like from behind, like. And again, you'll see it when he has to talk her off the ledge later on. He lets her walk in front of him, and there's just like the Kenton stare as she like walks away. You know,
Yes.
like there's like this predatory thing, and like it's something I like. I mean, he always had that presence, but rewatching it, knowing in the future episode he's going to go and try to kill her, like you definitely get the sense of like this is like the predator like watching over his prey, that's waiting for the moment to strike. And there's all sorts of messaging about that in this episode.
Yeah.
Um,
No, yeah, very cool, man. I love it when there are things that you pick up on that I don't, but it's almost more cool when there's like an over where you're like, "Oh yeah, that stood out to me as well." Um, but certainly his reflection in the screen and the placement of it throughout this whole sequence was very cool. Um, and of course, her bringing in the Fibonacci sequence again, which
mhm.
was they did a whole thing with it in the first episode. She brought it in again.
Right.
So of course he's injecting it one more time. Just this idea of patterns,
Right.
sequences,
And you could see,
inevitability.
yeah, and there's a part of you where you might actually entertain the idea of like this chick is so caught up in like looking at patterns that she would see one where none would exist. And you certainly get the idea from him, like, what the fuck is this girl like, even him, like he felt like he was looking at something where he might have to take action very soon on her.
Yeah,
And like all of a sudden he's just like, oh, okay, maybe not. And this is kind of tied into sort of the scene and before it, when Senator came in. I just found it like, again, we see this Amaya logo fucking everywhere. It's on the helicopter
yeah.
that dropped off the Senator, but it's also like the screensaver or background element on his computer
It's
when he's
all
using
over.
it, and it's
Yep.
just like it's watching over everything. Yeah. And
This is interesting. Samir was like, I was thinking, wait, why the bad writing all of a sudden? Then it hit me. That's really cool. I mean, it's, and I don't, people haven't tried to make film or work with, like, perform this kind of shit. It's like to have those subtle nuance, like differences, the shift, where you can actually notice, like, wait, something's kind of off with
mhm,
this. And then you find out, like, oh, there's a reason why it felt off, and the actors were playing it just enough to give you
mhm.
that sensibility, like to lend it to you. And that's when you like go, oh shit, that's impressive. That's fucking cool. you know. Um, I don't know. That's the kind of stuff that I really appreciate in this, in this medium.
So I mean,
But then
essentially,
Hex is like Kenton always watching.
right?
Like again, that could
He
be
is.
another. That's
He is.
another. Yeah, very good point, dude.
Um,
Yeah,
so from here, she acts like no one believes her, and I guess does faux suicidal cry for help as
I
she
love
stands
this shot,
outside.
dude.
Yeah,
Of her
I
on the
was just
ledge, it was so beautiful. Like what really got me was the reflection
yes,
is more
yes,
intense and vivid than the
yes,
reality.
yes,
Oh, it's fucking
absolutely.
hot.
Dude, I was gonna say something about the reflection. You put it better than I could have. The fact that if this was a solid wall behind her, it just would not have the same impact, the same feel. Like you feel like
Yeah.
okay, she's up in the trees, and it's even closer than like the trees behind. Yeah, it just like sold everything about this like being dangerous.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
and it speaks. There's like the layers to it, the reflective, the
now Samir,
mirroring, all of this shit. It's just like, well, the reflected image being more real than reality itself. It just speaks to all of it.
Now, Samir, we believe this is the scene that you're talking about because as she stands out there, Forrest walks the grounds with the senator. They turn the corner, and there's Lily up on the ledge, and he has to call Kenton and say, "Lily Chan's right outside your office. Get her down." And there's kind of this ironic element to the whole thing because there is sort of, I think, him not wanting any drama while the senator's there.
Of
But at
course.
the same time, it's like he knows that this won't be the death of Lily. And
Oh,
like,
right. Of
and
course.
he's calling Kenton, and it's just like there's sort of like this element, like he knows what's going to happen, but he's playing his part anyway as he goes. Like he's
He
almost like
is.
an actor in this whole
Yeah.
thing.
He's an actor in his own life at this point.
Yeah,
Very
and
true.
um, so Kenton comes out and quote unquote talks her down, never knowing that like he's being played at the moment. And the friend, I think her name is Jen.
Oh,
Um,
oh, I gotta stop you
oh,
there. I think there was something I wanted to hit on here real quick.
sure.
On the ledge. Oh, yes. So right before Forrest like notice, he does his role by noticing Lily up on the ledge, right? The
Hmm.
senator is saying that it's her job to stop the Luddites from smashing the looms, right? This
Hmm.
is her little speech to him, and I'm like, okay, Luddite, a person opposed to new technology or ways of working. And it also, it really is a reference to, I guess, these English workers who destroyed machinery, specifically looms, because it was a threat to their livelihood, right?
Hmm.
So, I think this is a big nod to what Forrest views is the only role that the government, like this oversight, could even have for him. The only benefit is that it will keep the Luddites off of his back while he does his work. Because if they knew what he was doing, they would want to smash the looms,
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool little scene.
So yeah, and one of the things Kenton says as he's talking Lily down is that he says nothing is stranger than reality. Like, and I just thought that was like a funny line to write or
Oh my
have
god.
in there, you know.
Yes. Yes, dude, I have that written in my notes exactly. Nothing is stranger than reality. I put that in my notes. So yeah, again, the overlap there.
And I
And
just
it's
like
true.
this.
I've found I can
Yeah,
I can attest to that, dude. The older
yeah.
I get, the more it rings true.
And I just love like how like nonchalantly comical, like it looks like he's on a smoke break, out there,
Right.
and like she looks like she's grasping for just the most solid thing she can. But yeah, in the past, like he lets her walk by, but like he just stares at the back of her head, and like you definitely get the sense of like, yeah, there's this interaction that's going to go down later on between them. Um, but yeah, after that, the Age of Aquarius thing is the next thing that I have down.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And I took note of that as well. It's another like, okay. Well, what is this song about? And to me, it's astrology. Um For sure. It's a very kind of peace and love hippie song, um, which I found interesting. Like, it speaks to like planets aligning and these kind of ideas and peace amongst us and all of this shit. So I found it to be quite an interesting choice of music. And then
Hmm.
I think for the first time we're shown what I think must be the back of the Devs building.
I believe so. Yeah,
And I
just
don't
looks like
think
a
up
huge
to this
power
point,
button.
I don't think it's ever been shown, and I don't have any idea why it was, why, he felt the need to show it here.
I don't know
I'm
either.
not sure. Other than like, what is this? I mean, this circle with the line isn't that usually like a power on button?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Looking
Yeah.
at.
So I'm like, he doesn't. You wouldn't just create this imagery for no fucking reason. He had a purpose there, and maybe that's it. Like, it's power on, baby. It's like the age of
Right.
Aquarius,
Yeah,
you know. And then there was this cool image of,
yeah.
this
The
speaks to
odd
that
couple.
bond, dude.
The
That
odd
like,
couple. Yeah.
yeah, where they're having a great time in this environment, even in the midst of all this heavy shit that they're involved with and what they're doing. There's still this human element of just like having a moment of joy, fun,
Hmm.
really cool shit. I love it. Um, the music montages are really usually pretty special on this series.
Hmm.
For
Yeah,
sure.
and so then we have, uh, for me, my next note is about Forrest talking to with Kenton,
Yep.
and at this point, Kenton says, "Oh, we got a trump card. She's schizo, which means she can go missing for any reason, and we can get rid of her at any point in time as well." And he says something along the lines of like nothing's going to happen to the tram lines, which was kind of like I didn't know whether that was him knowing it, but it was kind of at the same time, why would he fall for Lily being on the ledge? If he knew everything that was to come, like there was an element of like him being surprised by that whole thing, and I think it leads more into what you're saying, where he just isn't in the know, he doesn't have access to it. Like you said, need to know basis.
What really, I mean, for some reason, I felt like this is what Samir was referring to, like this conversation where he was trying to
No, he
protect
says,
Kenton.
yeah, he says it was in episode 2. Actually, I
But
have to
maybe
review it. I
I
don't
would
remember
have
it.
to see it again. But um, what really struck me about this interaction here is I feel like Forrest actually might, because Lily represents this X factor, this kind of she is she brings about the end of being able to see beyond a certain
Hmm.
moment, right?
Right.
She's this key figure. I feel like it's actually a possibility in his mind that she actually is schizophrenic,
Hmm.
because the way he says, um, and we didn't know.
Right.
I
Yeah.
actually feel like that's a legitimate, honest, authentic response. That maybe the simulation cannot see everything about this person because she
Oh,
is
very
this X
possible. Yeah.
factor, right?
And there wouldn't be the need for what's to come, which is the like the therapist and
Yeah.
trying to like interrogate her in a roundabout way and find out if she's telling the truth.
Yes, exactly. I think Forrest actually here doesn't know. Like, maybe his quantum simulation can't tell him everything about this person, even in the past, not just the future. So I feel like it actually perplexes him.
Right.
And I don't know if if you got that from it or.
No, I don't think I read that necessarily, but I think that's an interesting take, and one where like, yeah, maybe this is the limit of the system that you created. Is like, what if somebody's not of like a sound mind, and what that might introduce as far as like a complete error for it. But
Yeah.
I didn't read that heavily upon that. No.
Yeah, I felt like he was completely genuine in his response, like, and we didn't know. Uh, yeah, I don't know. That's how I read it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just like, that's what I got from it. So,
Hmm.
and it does, again, like you're saying, like, why would they go through all the therapist bullshit? Um, yeah. So, what's the next thing? Let's
For me, it's
see.
just they examine the video. They find out that the fire, uh, the
Oh, yeah.
the immolation was all.
Yes, I love this line where Jamie's all, "Wait, you want us to watch the man you left me for burn
Right,
himself to death together? That's
right,
transcendentally weird." I
yeah,
thought that was awesome line,
yeah.
dude.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, essentially they look at it, they find out that it's like dual dual use of the same fire effect, which I thought, man, if you're gonna put together like when you notice that or at least offset it enough, like so somebody
Well,
wouldn't see it every
I mean,
frame.
and this is another thing. It's like, and here's an example of the dual. You can see the flames like they're just mirrored here.
Mirrored, yeah.
Um, when it's played at normal speed, the first time you see it under emotional duress, not going to notice.
Right.
Um, but this is the thing: you're dealing with time constraints, budgetary constraints, and if you're anyone who's gone down conspiracy rabbit holes, you will find that these tactics and type of these types of shenanigans are used often because of limitations
Mm.
that exist, whether they be budgetary or time. And clone stamp, just simple tools just to get the job done will be leveraged. And you have to
Mm.
understand that maybe the person who created this, it wasn't as dire. It's not a matter of life and death to them. For them, it's just a job.
Hmm.
So it maybe doesn't hold the same importance. There's so many different factors, but yeah, this I found it interesting because I've seen this technique used in shit I've researched before, that like
All right.
proves something was fake in the real
All right.
world. So,
So yeah, from there they find out that, and then we get to the scene. Um, there's some song playing, I think, as they at the end of it at least, where they actually have burned the body of Sergei, but we see what actually happened with Kenton and
oh
his group
yes,
of guys,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's all
yeah.
played in reverse. Um,
Yes, again. I think that this really cool music starts. We get
mhm.
the pulsing heart of
Yeah,
the
this is where like it really
the
stood out
quantum
for me
computer.
too.
And dude, the
That
imagery
shot,
of this is so beautiful, man. I fucking love it. And then you get the shot of the Amaya statue, and
yeah.
there's obviously an actual real fire at her feet, which is like,
Hmm.
wait, this was faked, right? But then it hits you. Oh no, of course they would have actually had to burn the body on the spot for forensics, for the police.
Right,
They would have had
right.
to do that. But the imagery of it going from the quantum pulsing machine
Mhm.
to the firelight dancing off of the statue is absolutely stunning, man.
Yeah,
It's so fucking good.
and I couldn't help but think about the that meme that goes around now of like the casket with the dudes like that dance with it, you know,
Oh yeah.
like
Oh
when they were
yes,
carrying the
dude.
body of Sergey. Like I just couldn't
Oh
help but
no,
think about it,
yes.
dude.
And what was the thing with it? First of all, there's Lily says the body is real, the suicide is fake, and that's when it cuts
Right.
to the cool imagery of like
Hmm. Well, and
the
it makes you
quantum
wonder.
computer and the shit,
Yeah,
and it's like,
the fact
wait,
that
so
they
there
did it.
there could be something real. Maybe the simulation doesn't know the difference all the time
Maybe.
necessarily. Like, and I
Right.
think Samir maybe just made a comment to this effect of the computer couldn't tell because it was a lie. Like maybe the simulation itself doesn't always know the difference, which is fascinating, actually.
Yeah, and the whole respect of like playing it all in reverse, messing with your sense of
Why do
time
you
and
think?
space,
Why do you think he
reality.
chose that? Why did he do it in reverse?
I honestly don't know. I think it was maybe more interesting, but I think it's always playing with the idea of you have to understand like we're given basically the godlike view of the whole thing anyway. We're
Yeah.
not held out on Sergei's death. It wasn't as if we were in Luli's spot trying to solve this thing as it went on. We
Right.
already knew why everything had happened, and we already had to know again that uh, the body is real, the burning was real, but the suicide was fake. We knew all these things already.
Yes.
And so it might just be playing into your overarching view, your ability to see everything as it's going on. Here it
Or
is,
that.
just like
Ooh.
out of order.
Maybe that things always make more sense in hindsight, in reverse. They're always
Potentially,
more clear.
but the show. I mean, one of the things that over and over again you hear is cause and effect,
Yeah.
and the fact that this simulation software is meant to work forwards and backwards. So
Oh,
we're
okay. Yeah.
maybe we're seeing a version of it from the quantum computer, working it out, in its own way. Like this is just one version of how this
Yeah.
all went down. Um,
I just love it's so cool. Even on, their episodes that might not, like you said, episode 2 maybe felt a little like we could just gloss over it, but there's a part of me that's like, I I don't think so. And we spent a lot more time than I think you would have thought on episode 2. There's just a lot going on.
mhm.
And I like that Garland doesn't feel a need to make it all like a hammer to your fucking skull.
No,
Um,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like you gotta hunt it down a little bit. You gotta really like read between the lines and really experience this thing.
well, I think it
Uh,
lets you examine it in your own way. Like you're not
mm,
beaten over the head so much in one direction or the other. There's enough for you to play around with, that they
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So that's
Uh,
where that's where episode 3 ended, is the revelation of Kenton getting the body dressed up for their live. You're roboting. It's like I'm watching the opening of episode 3. Or am I in trouble? Here we go. We got our own little quantum problem here. Think Rot's resetting. This happens to him. I can't believe he's not even on camera. It's not even black and white.
there we go. Are we good?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, dude. Sometimes it has to do with my computer for some reason. It just like loses like good connection with the Wi-Fi, and I know I need to get a physical like
You know
setup
what?
for that.
It's kind of a meta thing, but it's like I'm in a state where I'm like, am I the one that's out and I just
No.
don't know it, or is he the one? And like, you never know.
Yeah.
Like, there's no third person here to like verify it for us. I was waiting for chat to like might weigh in my favor, but I was just like, either I'm talking into nothing, or
No, it was totally me.
yeah,
I'm lucky it doesn't happen more often. And EVS has the same. He deals with this constant, like
everyone has it, man.
he
Everyone
just
has it.
fucking pauses for no apparent reason every once in a while, and it's like we're all used to it. So,
Mhm.
so I know Samir, I'd sent you a message and saying like you fell into the Raten glory hole. Yeah, well, you know, it's really it's always calling to me. It's always there, and I'm like, man, that glory hole. It's looking really, really sexy right now. So, yeah, it's a problem. I'll deal with it. I'll get it conquered. Um, I know, Samir, I dropped you a message. I said, maybe you could come in at the tail end of this and share your thoughts about the show. But damn, we've been going for almost
Almost 2 hours.
an hour
dude.
and 50 minutes here.
Yep.
I'm kind of beat. I think we pulled this out about as long as we can. I do want to I really want to have Samir on to talk about this show and what his thoughts are on it, and maybe
Yeah.
hopefully maybe we'll pick up some more viewers along the way, and we can just have like a big like closeout. What did you think about this show?
Yeah, I would definitely like to talk to you because you seem to be cutting the other way on terms of the show.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear like someone who has a different take on it.
Yep.
But it still seems like you kind of respect some of the elements of it too. So it'd be good to get that other voice in there.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's definitely gonna happen. So we'll definitely we'll get you in here, Samir, and maybe it'll just be like we can have a big group discussion at the end of this whole thing. But I'm enjoying revisiting it, watching it again, being able to talk about it is I don't know. I'm really enjoying it, man.
Yeah, same here, man.
And again, if you want to check out part 1, it's in the description below on Lucius's channel. And I think are we going back to your channel again next week?
It's up to you. Like I said, we kind of talked off the air. Like I just think you're better set up to like this background. It's all thematic, more than what I had. Just a black background.
No, I get that. But I don't mind working within the framework of what you got. I think we should just alternate. And,
okay.
It's nice. I do a lot of shows during the week. It's nice to not have to run the show.
Always host it, yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
It's nice to just be the guy who's like, oh, you're fucking this up, not me.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Hex Allen and Samir, for being here through this thing. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week with this. And I want to say, dude, I got Fragaboom coming on Friday for a midday repartee. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and now you have something else to talk about. You're going to talk about coming into the whole thing, as a established pro and working in the indie scene.
Exactly.
And now you can talk about losing your fucking channel and having to start over.
Right. Yeah. So we got a lot to talk about. It's going to be a good show. Check that out. And thanks you guys for being here. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.